got something pretty cool for you guys here today. We're checking out Dune Awakening, and funny story, this is why I was in Norway recently. Yeah, they flew myself and a bunch of other creators that you might know of out, and we actually got to play this in person. It was really cool, but honestly, it was just a really nice trip as well. The team at Funcom were just super nice, and like they gave us a full tour of the office, and yeah, it was a really great trip, honestly. I'm looking back on it, and I kind of wish that it was longer because we had so much fun. Yeah, anyway, so yeah, I'm gonna get to show you just a ton of gameplay from it, because on one of the days we got to play for like I think like 6 or 7 hours or something like that. But yeah, so one thing I will say, I'm not allowed to show you certain things like story elements and stuff like that, so I can't show you any of that. But what I can show you is some of the gameplay. And speaking of, they did provide us with like headset mics and everything, but I kind of just felt like maybe the audio might not be that good on that, so I decided to just unplug that, and I talked to some of the guys beside me in person. But yeah, anyway, so enjoy. I'm gonna have to voice over the rest of this whole video, and I'm still a little bit sick, but yeah, let's get into it. And the first thing that I did, as you can see right here, was create my character, and I tried to make it as close to Syntac as possible, and I think I did a pretty good job. I don't know. Okay, so we're gonna have to skip through the tutorial section because, you know, it's got some story elements in it, and I can't explain to you why there's a crashed Ornithopter here. Maybe it was always there, who knows? But the one thing I do know is a sandworm is on its way, and as we all know, in the Dune universe, you can't do anything in the sand, in the dunes, without the sandworms coming and ruining the party. They're like ants at a picnic, honestly. Look at that. Those things are so terrifying. And I have to say, while playing this, like, it was very scary crossing even just like small sections, because one thing about this kind of like starting area is that sandworm that you saw there was gigantic, right? That's not even the biggest one that is in the game. They told us the further you go into the game, the bigger those things get, and they are gigantic towards the end. I never even got to see one, and all the sandworms I saw were just massive anyway, so yeah. Starting off the whole actual like survival aspect of this, we basically are just kind of running around looking for some stuff. I didn't really know what I was running into right here, and I accidentally walked into a little enemy camp. And then I realized that they've got guns and I don't, so it wasn't very fair. And I did try to, you know, combat them a little bit. I thought, come on, I should be able to cheese them. I got one killed, and then I think, yeah, I do believe I was like trying to do some like weird, like I don't even know what I was trying to do right there, I'll be honest. Yeah, but they, as you can see, they absolutely ruined me. But yeah, let's just pretend that didn't happen. We'll just edit that bit right out. Okay, so after collecting myself and my dignity, I decided to run around and look for some stuff, and we got the opportunity to use the cut array a little bit, which is a tool that you can kind of like scan things with, like rocks, and as you can see here, some scrap, and then you kind of just like laser the weak points, and yeah, it just gives you all those resources. It's pretty cool. So at this stage, I was just looking at my inventory, and then I started getting shot at, which was quite concerning until Axe, who's sitting right beside me, asked, "Oh, is that you?" Yeah, he actually somehow managed to spawn right beside me in the game and everything, and he started a couple minutes before me, so that's why he's got so much gear. But yeah, so honestly, I don't even understand how that managed to happen. We were sitting next to each other in assigned seating. It wasn't our choice. And then, yeah, boom, we're just like spawned next to each other. Look at that in the background, by the way. That's a sandworm just barreling across the dunes. I don't even know. It could be going after somebody for all we know. But yeah, super terrifying, honestly. But yeah, so at this point, we just tried to figure out if there's some sort of like guild or something like that. And eventually we got into one together. Skipping ahead a little bit more, I now have some armor and my own gun, and yeah, I tried to stealthily take out this guy that I found inside of a cave, but unfortunately that didn't work out very well for us, but I did manage to take him out in the end though, which was great. Then I went around just stealing a bunch of his stuff, and one really nice thing about this game is when you're around other people and somebody gets to the chest before you, you're still able to go and get the exact same kind of stuff out of it as they did. So yeah, honestly, it makes it so you don't have to like rush and be like a little loot goblin, which I don't really enjoy in some other games. So after leaving that cave, I managed to find myself a cool looking rock, so I decided to go ahead and use my cut array on it, and it turned out to actually be copper. And then I had some more combat with a couple other locals. One thing to note is that this area is actually a complete PvE area. The actual PvP section of this game happens further on. You can't just PvP in this area, which is definitely going to make it a lot easier for people to just get started, because, you know, you won't have a bunch of people just coming back and griefing your gameplay. So right above that camp that we were at, I managed to find an Ornithopter, and yeah, I basically went through this, like, full, like, process of just slowly dissecting it by kind of like removing certain parts. So as you can see, it's just like giving me a different section each time to go ahead and just like basically dismantle, and then yeah, eventually it actually rolled off the cliff when I took enough of it away. But yeah, I don't know, I just found this to be really cool. I don't know, it's just like, it's almost just like it's something there. It could have just been a bunch of scrap, but instead, no, it's a full-on vehicle, and there's multiple different sections to take apart. I don't know, just something about this whole process was really fun. So remember when I said Axe is on my left-hand side? Well, Zavi, who's actually an Arc PvPer, was on my right-hand side, and we'd been hanging out like this whole time as well. So yeah, somehow the three of us were sitting together and also all spawned close to each other in game as well. Kind of wild, to be honest, but yeah, we got him in our little tribe. So naturally, it didn't take very long before the three of us got a little bloodthirsty and decided to go ahead and raid the stronghold up on the cliff. There actually was a decent amount of enemies in this base, but we were able to take them out without too much effort. And then I went around just stealing their blood, because you can actually use people's blood to extract water, which is obviously the main thing that you're gonna need in a desert like this. We got to the stage of the tutorial where we actually had to go ahead and do our very first cave trial, where we could basically unlock some insight. And yeah, you had to go to this altar, do just a little bump of some spice, and then get through this area without being seen by these all-seeing eyes. And they were really creepy, honestly. But yeah, we got through this. Not really too crazy. As we were heading out of the trial area, we ran into Aaron Aztec, who's also another Arc YouTuber, and yeah, he was heading on his way in, so we got him into our party as well. So we were on our way home, and unfortunately, we had to cross this massive section of desert right here, and like the guy he is, Axe decided he wants to run ahead and leave us behind like this. So yeah, we honestly could have gotten killed pretty easily, because he could have attracted the worm, and then as we were running, we could have easily gotten scooped up in its path. And in fact, you can see right there on the screen, we had a symbol and then it turns red, telling us that the worm is very, very close. And it turns out it actually peeked its head out, and it's almost like a bit of a taunt that it does. Now, lucky for us, we did manage to make it all the way across and not get killed. But later on in this video, I do get killed by the sandworm, and yes, it is crazy looking. Now, if you know anything about the still suit from the Dune universe, it's essentially this kind of like bodysuit that retains your water that you expel through sweat and everything, and yeah, basically it kind of like recycles it a little bit. So this is like the perfect thing to be wearing out in the desert, and we were now at the point when we could actually go ahead and make one, and I gotta say, it looks pretty snazzy. Now you're probably wondering why I'm so hurt, and it's actually because at this stage in our little tutorial, Axe and I are trying to use the survey probe, and yeah, to use this you need to be as high as possible and not like below like something as well. So you have to be like completely sky access, and then you shoot it up into the air, and it kind of just like scans the area, and what it will do is it's going to go ahead and just like unlock a massive section of the map for you. And later on in like the deep desert kind of area, you're going to be able to scan areas, and then you're going to be able to sell those maps to other players if you want to, which definitely sounds really cool. So I finally got around to properly making the guild instead of the party thing that we'd been using for a little while, and decided to name it Arc Boys and gave it a nice little description right there. And then I went ahead and just invited all of the Arc Boys that were there. We had Axe, we had Zavi, we had Aaron, we had Crow Meta, and then we also had Mr. Miola, of course. And I have to say, all of them were really, really nice in person. And to be honest, like, obviously I've known Axe for a long time. I've known Miola for a long time as well. And it was really weird getting to, like, meet them in person and getting to know them in person, because everybody's a little bit different in person. And they didn't even once comment on the fact that I was wearing a paper bag on my head the entire time, and it might have been kind of hard to hear what I was saying. So unfortunately, I'm missing about an hour and a half, I think, of gameplay. And it really sucks, because it's nobody's fault but NVIDIA's. Unfortunately, the PC that I was playing on, the graphics card just completely stalled, and then the PC just froze up completely, and yeah, honestly, it really sucks, but it's literally not even the game's fault. Like, the whole PC was frozen, and there's really nothing we could have done. So yeah, basically, at this point, Axe and I were like raiding this massive kind of like dungeon kind of area, which turned out to be a little bit creepy in certain spots, as you can see right there from the lovely little decoration. And yeah, we basically had to go ahead and just check out this whole area, look for a bunch of pieces, and then after this stage, we're kind of getting to the point when we can go ahead and start making ourselves some vehicles, which is when it gets very, very interesting. So after grinding out a ton of resources back at base, I finally had enough stuff to make this whole bike. So yeah, you actually kind of place all these parts on. You have like a welding torch in your hand, and yeah, you basically just kind of piece this whole thing together, and yeah, there we go. There is our bike. Unfortunately, we didn't actually have any fuel, but Axe actually managed to pick up some of that fuel inside of that little dungeon area that we raided together. So instead of completing our next step, which would have been getting to the point where we can make our own fuel, we decided to use the limited amount that he had and just ride off into the sunset together. So I'll be completely honest, even though we were having a lot of fun playing throughout the day up until this point, I feel like when we got these bikes, the gameplay and just the fun that we were having just kind of shot up to another level, because, you know, it was very long to kind of get from point A to point B and then back to base and then this and that, and it's all good and everything, but when you can get to the stage when you can just drive around, and these things travel pretty fast as well, it definitely picks up the gameplay to like another level, and we had a lot of fun. In fact, we got to the point when we just decided to see if we could mess with some of the guys, so we decided to drive all the way over to Aaron. I really do feel like they nailed the actual vehicle feel when you're driving these things. I think the only thing that they could do to possibly improve this experience a little bit more would be give you like a first-person view when you're on the back of these things, or in an ornithopter, as you'll see later on. Like, a first-person view would be amazing, but either way, though, they handle really well, and they're quite fun to use. And yes, you can actually run over enemies with them, and of course, I would try that. So eventually, we made it all the way over to Aaron's base, and his base was a lot bigger than ours, which made us feel a little bad. We didn't really put a whole lot of effort into building our little spots, but yeah, I kind of regret doing that now. I definitely regret not putting a little bit more time into actually building something bigger, although we didn't really claim a great area to build in, so that's why I really haven't shown you anything that we did build, because it's just a bunch of foundations and ceilings, just enough to get to those next little tutorial missions. So it's at this point we realize there's an amazing feature with these vehicles, and it's the fact that when you drive into somebody, because it's PvE, they don't get run over. Instead, they kind of like get propped up on top of your vehicle like that. So that is Axe driving Aaron really, really far away from his base. And the funny part is that Aaron was actually AFK off doing like a dev interview thing. And yeah, he came back and he was so far away from his base. It was just a really funny moment that unfortunately I don't have audio of, but you'll have to take my word for it. I actually tried to follow them, but instead ran into what I called the space police. I genuinely cannot remember the name of these guys right here, but yeah, they basically fly these vehicles throughout the sky and just like have these massive spotlights like that. And if you get into the spotlight, it's almost as if they're abducting you. So yeah, it was a very tense moment for me. And as you can see right here, I get into the spotlight and yeah, weird stuff happens, but I think eventually I did manage to break free of it somehow. Yeah, I didn't really know what was gonna happen, and then I think they actually sent down some troops at me as well. But yeah, I think I'm being shot at by a couple guys there from that base, but then there's also some guys off to my right-hand side, which were spawned down from that ship. So yeah, they were really trying to get me, and I was really trying to get away, and it was very spooky. It was also around this time that we had a bunch of the developers just kind of in the room, and they just started walking over to like me and Axe and just seeing the ridiculous stuff that we were doing, just, you know, shaking their heads, but also just being really amused by the fun that we found through just doing random things here. But yeah, I think the fact that we were picking people up and moving them definitely became like the talk of the room at that stage, and I think everybody tried to do it as well, which was pretty funny. So after a couple minutes, I actually found somebody in their base, and I decided to do the exact same thing that Axe was doing, and I decided to go ahead and kidnap them. I did get them out the door, but I think I accidentally dropped them at one point, and luckily they didn't die or anything because they're not super high up. But I did manage to get them back onto my bike after a second, and I was trying to do all this before they even noticed that I had taken them, because I do believe that they were crafting at the stage when I did pick them up. So it was around this moment that the dude actually realized that somebody had grabbed him, and I just basically saw him over to my right. He was like a couple people down, and he was just laughing about the fact that I did that. And he was telling me how he was crafting. He didn't even notice, and it was a bit of a funny moment. And then he was about to get up, and I was like, oh, here, hang on, let me put you back into your base. And he's like, no, it's okay. And I'm like, no, I insist. And so I basically run him over again to move him back up to his base. The funny part comes after this, though, because it also includes a story that I was told later on about this guy, because I didn't even know who he was. We'll get to that. But so yeah, as you can see right here, I'm basically like putting him back. But at the same point, this guy had gotten up away from his PC, and I thought he was either going to the toilet or to get a drink or a dev interview or something. The thing that I realized later on is that this guy never came back. And so after a little while, Axe and I were talking, and I thought, like, we both kind of thought, like, did I like upset him or something? Like, because this guy didn't come back at all. Okay, and his like character later on had like died, and he was like on the respawn screen in that area right there. So he didn't even come back into the room and touch his PC. Later on, I was asked, do I even know who that was? And I was like, no. And then I was told that this guy was from Tencent, which is, I do believe it's one of the biggest gaming companies in China. I do believe it's like mostly like mobile gaming, but that's a little bit concerning. So basically, I kind of almost like, I guess, kidnapped a Chinese national, sort of. Anyway, and then I was like, oh my god, like I didn't realize, like I hope I didn't upset him. And then I was like, oh, he never like came back or anything. And then the developers I was talking to, they were like, oh no, he left the country. And I was like, okay, wow, I really upset him. And then, you know, obviously it was a bit of a joke, you know. He didn't leave because of me, hopefully. No, he definitely didn't. But I don't know. It was just such a funny moment. So yeah, I don't know. I was messing with somebody. I didn't even realize who they were. They were like way more important than I am. So yeah, kind of crazy. But yeah. So I don't know, man. Like, there's so many people there. It was really fun to like just mess with people. But you know, you can't really know how people are gonna take it. Luckily, he took it well though. So yeah, we're all good in that respect. I'm not gonna get banned from gaming in China, I guess. Another amazing shot of the worm in the background right there. Like I said, these things were just all over the place, and it's really crazy when they pop out of the ground like that. So I saw this really tall dune, and I decided to go ahead and basically just drive up to the very top of it to see if I could fly off the other side. Little did I know, this actually is the border of the map. I didn't even realize I was driving into the border of the map, and then this is what happens when you do that. I don't know if I would have potentially made it out if I had have like backed up instead of trying to turn around, but as you can see right here, it just really didn't work out very well for me, and I actually lost my bike there as well, which is quite unfortunate. Luckily, Axe was nice enough to drive me all the way over to where I died, and I did actually manage to get my stuff back in the end. But you can see right there on the map, that is where I died. I died like basically on the border of the whole map. So then I had to spend a little while actually grinding out all the materials again to make another bike, and then we also decided to get into trying to make up some fuel for them as well. The next step in our tutorial actually called for us to travel north into the desert and basically kind of enter the next area. And yeah, so we made that journey. Really didn't take too long. Honestly, these sand bikes are amazing. Like, you get around so much faster. If you walked that, you'd be doing that walk for a good long time, and then crossing like little kind of sections of the desert as well is dangerous in its own respect. And yeah, I have to say, nighttime in this game is beautiful. It's not like overly dark, but it's like dark enough, and then you have that beautiful big moon right there just lighting up the whole place. And yeah, it's a really nice atmosphere, honestly. Kind of bums me out sometimes when survival games come out and, you know, the nighttime is just pitch black, like you can't see anything. Like, why create something where, you know, nighttime is just like so dark that it's kind of pointless to even do anything at night? I never really understood that myself. So even though we'd kind of made it up to this new area, I completely forgot to bring myself a survey probe, which is definitely something that you're gonna want to do when you're going out and exploring new areas. So I had to drive all the way home to try and get one. Now, luckily, I had a good idea of where I could potentially go ahead and use one. Right in front of me, there's like this big kind of like base type thing. It almost kind of looked like a big refinery or something. And I decided to go ahead and see if we could climb to the very top and maybe use it from up at the top there. You don't actually have to use the survey probe at the highest possible point in this area, but you do have to use it from a decent height. And yeah, obviously sky axis as well is very important. Now, one thing I will say is that I really did not know what I was getting myself into here. You know, there's a lot of enemies in here, and yeah, they were very mean, so I quickly died, and then I had to respawn on my bike, and I had to come back up here and try and see if I could grab my stuff. When you do die, you don't lose absolutely everything that you own, but you lose quite a lot of stuff, and yeah, you can see my death cache thingy is right there. The issue right now is that these guys are like much higher tier than I was, and I really didn't think I could actually get to my stuff at all. But then at this stage, we actually had some of the devs come in and basically ask the golden question of, do you guys want some ornithopters? So we were kind of getting down to like the last maybe like 40-ish minutes of the actual the presentation, like the gameplay and everything, the playtest. But yeah, at this stage, you know, I was kind of like, okay, yeah, I want to try that. And a lot of people obviously wanted one as well. I think mostly everybody in the room actually got themselves an ornithopter, but obviously at this point we had like this little encounter where one of the enemies was down at the bottom, and your man was trying to actually give me an ornithopter, but then he actually had to deal with that guy. We got to see somebody who actually knows what they're doing with the combat fighting with the combat, so that was pretty interesting. In the Dune universe, a lot of these enemies actually have these shields, and you have to kill them in a very specific way, because like your guns don't really work to take down those shields perfectly. You actually have to usually kill them with a slow blade through the shield. So I can't show you any of the admin stuff, but what I can show you is my lovely new Ornithopter, and here is my maiden voyage. We had so much fun using these things. So obviously I've seen the movies. Like, I know there's like this, you know, a couple scenes where, you know, they're flying up high and then they kind of like dive down. So that's that vulture control over there. It's shift. And yeah, you can actually use that to just basically dive down. Now, in a couple minutes, we'll figure out that you can use that to do a lot of really fun things in the air. But I do have to say, like, just using these things were really cool. Like, just getting to actually like see the world from up here as well was amazing just in itself. But yeah, I don't know, I really enjoyed when we actually got to playtest with these things. There was one kind of thing early on in the game when I really thought we were going to be able to pilot one of these guys, but it didn't really happen. But yeah, it's definitely really nice and very rewarding to get to check out one of these things eventually. I don't really know how deep into the actual game the Ornithopter is, but this one that I'm actually flying in right now is the smallest version. There are a couple other versions. There's a kind of like a larger version, which we actually get later. I think I was the only person in the room to actually get one as well, which was amazing. And then, yeah, there's also another version that can kind of like lift up the big harvester things that go out and get the spice and everything. So yeah, there's actually 2 more Ornithopters that I know of anyway, that you can get in the game. And of course, yeah, you can see right here, we're doing a little bit of gliding using that vulture mode. So we do some crazy stuff here in a couple minutes, and you'll also see a ton of other people appear in the sky with their Ornithopters. There were like, I think 30 people in the room when we were doing this, and it was all like creators and I think 2 press people. People like IGN and everything, they were in the day before, and I think that they all got to check out the game on that day. But yeah, right here, I'm almost figuring out that I can do a bit of a barrel roll. And then just wait and see. I actually managed to do it here in a minute. But yeah, so basically there was like around 30 people in the room, and I think we were spread out across like 2 servers apparently. But it seemed like a lot of the people that I knew were actually in the same server as me. But yeah, it was really cool to just like see everybody floating through the sky. And here we go, our very first barrel roll, and then our very first double barrel roll, and then I believe a triple barrel roll. Yeah, that's our very first one of those. And yeah, at that stage, like, everybody was like, oh my god, you could do that? And like, you know, everybody just started having such ridiculous fun. Off in the distance there, I think that might be, was that spice? I don't exactly know. I think I tried to see what it was, but yeah, no, we can't actually see it from there. So something really weird happens here. I managed to take my hands completely off the keyboard, and then I accidentally put my hands back on. Probably not in the same positions. Also, you can see right there, I didn't take any fall damage. That's actually through one of the skills that I unlocked. So yeah, I basically lost my Ornithopter, and there's sandworms around, and I knew I couldn't get back to it, and yeah, here we go. It's gonna play out. So yeah, I think because it's not like my normal keyboard, it felt weird using that one. And my keyboard, I know just by feeling that it's WASD, but I think I put my hands down on ESDF. So yeah, it's yeah, I basically managed to, instead of going forward, jump out of my Ornithopter. But luckily you can actually go ahead and respawn on them as well. I did lose all my stuff here, but we were getting towards the end that it didn't really matter a huge amount to me. But yeah, so you can see right here I did respawn on it. And yeah, let's do a little bit more flying. But yeah, getting actually killed by the sandworm was pretty cool. Definitely really awesome. Look at that dude right there. I think we were trying to like land on each other here as well. We were really trying to do some weird stuff, just trying to see if we could like push the boundaries of this game. And yeah, it gets even sillier later. Just you wait. Right around here is when I decided to try and see if I could manage to do a front flip, and it mostly worked, but you didn't really seem to be able to complete any of them. I don't know what it was. It was just something with the vehicles where they couldn't perfectly do the front flip. I tried many times with like extra speed and everything, and I think it kind of breaks the physics of them just a little bit. I don't know if they expected people to be able to do this stuff, so it's kind of hard to tell if they're supposed to do that. But maybe they'll kind of like take a little bit of like what they learned from us playing, and maybe try to incorporate some of that into the game as well. But yeah, definitely was super fun. I have to say, the Ornithopters were awesome. One thing that they don't have in the game, I don't believe anyway, is weapons. So you can't just take an Ornithopter and then just like fly in and shoot missiles at a bunch of like low tier players or something like that. So yeah, that I think that's a little disappointing, but I understand it for balance, because having something like this where you're kind of untouchable is a little bit broken. So yeah, it's probably for the best. I will say one thing through making this video that I'm a little bit disappointed about is the fact that I did lose a bunch of footage, because through that whole like hour and a half that I had, you know, that clip going, and then we lost it, we actually learned a lot about the combat. So I'll explain just a little bit through some ridiculous looking Ornithopter flying here. But yeah, so in the game, there's basically like kind of two versions of combat. So there's, you know, range combat, which is obviously guns, and then there's melee combat. And in a lot of situations, you're gonna mostly have to resort to using your melee combat, because there's so many enemies that just have these shields on, and they're just gonna be able to charge you. And if you have a gun, you're not really gonna be able to shut down that shield perfectly anyway. There are specific types of bullets that actually go through, or not, they're not really bullets, they're darts. They go through the shields, but they can also fail on everything. So yeah, for the most part, I definitely found like I was resorting to combat when the enemies ran in at me. But also, if you have yourself a shield, which is something that we unfortunately didn't get throughout our whole playthrough, so it's probably a little bit further along. But when you actually do manage to get yourself a shield, when you're using your guns, your shield drops. So you can't use guns and be perfectly safe with your shield. So in all honesty, I really enjoyed the combat, but I feel like for the most part, unless you have really good cover, you're probably best off just running in and trying to take them out with a blade or something like that. And I actually managed to get a really cool blade that also, when I stab somebody and hurt them and everything like that, I also managed to collect up some of their blood as well. So there's like different types of blades that do all that kind of stuff as well. And I really wish I didn't lose that hour of footage, because I would have been able to show you all this stuff. So you're just gonna have to take my word for it, because that throughout that whole hour, that is the most amount of combat that we did. But yeah, it's a little unfortunate that I lost it. So I did say you can't actually have weapons on these things, but I was kind of curious to whether or not the actual Ornithopter was a weapon. So yeah, I tried this. I needed to know. I needed to know if I could actually kill them with the wings, and I do get a kill here eventually. And then I did confirm afterwards that you can do this, because I wasn't sure if I got a kill. I think some XP popped up on the screen, and yeah, I just wanted to be 100% certain. It's not that easy to get the kills, but you know, it's definitely possible. When the hell did I even get it? I don't even remember. Hey, there we go. We just got it right there. So yeah, I think at that stage I was like, okay, I don't want to lose my Ornithopter and not have any of this fun that everybody's having. But yeah, so we did manage to get ourselves a kill, confirmed the fact that you could actually do that as well, which is great. And yeah, so I don't know if you could actually do that to players. Definitely only in the PvP kind of areas, but yeah, it was still pretty cool to actually do that. So Axe's Ornithopter actually ran out of juice, and so I decided to pick him up. And yeah, you can actually fly with people on the top of them, which is pretty cool. You can't really do like any like barrel rolls or front flips or anything with them because they will fall off, but it was still pretty cool to be able to actually just fly around with him on the very top of it like that. We were having so much fun testing some of this stuff, and this is definitely something that we needed to know. And yeah, I basically kind of turned him into like the Flash, I guess. He's just like vibrating at like such a high frequency right there. It's crazy, but he didn't stay on the Ornithopter, unfortunately. And we're almost out of fuel here as well. So after my Ornithopter ran out of fuel, I got a little cheeky and I realized that I could open up the admin console thing, which I don't think I'm allowed to show you. And then somebody caught me over my shoulder and then decided to just spawn me in a bunch of things. So we have so much stuff right here. A new Ornithopter, which is this big one that we're flying. And we've got one of those harvesters right there. Unfortunately, this Ornithopter is not the one that can pick up the harvester, but yeah, I kind of got logged out of admin mode after that, so I wasn't allowed to have any more fun with that. But it's all good, you know. I understand. Okay, they don't want anybody to be able to see any of that stuff, and yeah. So anyway, this new Ornithopter obviously is a lot bigger than the previous one. Still kind of handles the exact same as well. You can do all the same kind of stuff with it. It is just significantly bigger, and this kind of comes back to what I was saying earlier on. You know, the fact that you're able to fly in these things is great, but if you were actually able to do like, you know, first-person mode through the cockpit, that would have been so much better. Like, as well, you know, in addition to this kind of view right here, it just would have been very immersive. Right now, we're actually about to get hit by a sandstorm. And this also happened around the same time that Axe is, like, desperately asking me to go and pick him up from this area that I was, like, somewhere close to him, but I could not see him at all. And then I think we get, like, pelted by the sandstorm just as we tried to pass this thing. And just wait and see what this actually does. So everything, like, I'm blind to absolutely everything. I'm getting shoved around as well. Like, I'm not flying like left or right there, I don't believe. I'm just getting shoved all over the place. And yeah, like, look at this. Look, I get absolutely swung into the side. Yeah, it's not a good time. So if you see a sandstorm coming and you've got an Ornithopter, you need to just land that thing and just kind of like wait out the sandstorm. You're not going to get anything done at that point. And yeah, I definitely think this is really cool. Like, it's just so ridiculous. You can also see it on the map there as well. But yeah, so it's just such a crazy moment when that came in. Like, I knew it was coming, but I don't know. I didn't expect it to be that rough for me, but it does pass over fairly fast though, which is great. So with this silly footage of me trying to land an Ornithopter on top of the bigger Ornithopter, I think we'll end off the video. One thing I will say is, like, I don't really know how well this video is going to turn out. Like, there's a lot of things that we did, but trying to translate that into, like, you know, watchable good content when it's not like a live kind of reaction from me is a little weird to me. It would be like me voicing over all my videos, but especially when it comes to a game that I've never played before, it's especially difficult. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully this video turned out well anyway. We had a lot of fun playing it, and you know, there's a lot of avenues of like things of the actual content that we didn't even show you in this video, like the building, and then obviously there's the skill tree, and I mean, you can see some of that stuff on the screen right there. But I know we didn't really dive too much into that, and a lot of that relates to the lost hour and a half that I had of footage. But again, it's not even their fault. You know, it's fine. I don't blame them at all. But yeah, it's probably my fault for not stopping and starting recordings a little bit more often, because they did warn us that that could possibly happen, and I still left it a little while. But yeah, I will say the game's quite fun, and I think that you should wish list it on Steam and wherever else you play games, I guess. And yeah, I don't know, it's definitely fun. I would recommend checking it out when it comes out. I don't know when it's coming out because they never gave us a release date, but we do know it's early this year. We just don't know how early this year. Anyway, thanks so much to Funcom for inviting me, and again, thanks to all the other creators that were there for being so nice. And yeah, thanks for watching. Catch you the next one.